All right, 2 Kings chapter 11. Let's call this one Did Not Depart from Treason, because in this chapter, we're going to see a queen of Israel, Athaliah, take over after her son is killed by Jehu. So when Jehu was cleaning house, as we mentioned, he killed Jehoram himself and had the archers kill Ahaziah, son of Athaliah. And so when she sees that her son is dead in Judah, she decides to go on a rampage and have all the other possible heirs to the throne killed so that she can take over herself. Problem is, God never set aside a space for a queen of Israel. And so it looks like, unlike Jehu, who is essentially atoning for blood guilt by getting rid of Ahab's household, Athaliah is simply killing to take power, and it is going to set the standard by which she is going to be exited from the throne of Israel 6 years later, because she is going to rule for a while. But even though she is convinced that she needs to be leader of Israel, not everybody around her is. And so it seems that one of her own daughters or either close relatives is going to hide at least one of her grandkids that she is not going to be able to kill. They're going to hide that young man, and one of the priests, Jehoiada, is going to eventually present him to other members of the court, getting them to make a covenant that they will actually set him on the throne, since he is actually heir to the throne. And so after 6 years, that is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to guard him until they can find an opportunity to actually have the official ceremony, making him king of Israel. And once Athaliah hears it, she is going to rush in and yell treason, which is super ironic. Probably bringing up our first point. There are times in life where we, as much as we can think of empathy, as I mentioned before, as being a cheesy concept, it's not until we are actually in the position of others that we can actually wake up to what it's like to be them. And so, ironically enough, she took the throne by treason against the natural lineage of rulers in Israel. And now she's getting a chance to see what it feels like as they have now made Joash, her grandson, king of Israel, and the writing, for lack of a better term, is on the wall for Athaliah. And so the priest's going to be like, don't do anything here. Take her outside the temple, and that is where they're going to execute Athaliah, helping us understand a number of principles. One, it is probably wise for us to understand why God emphasizes loving one another. It's not just so that we can be kind to other people, but in a lot of ways, love opens our understanding to the standard of judgment that God uses for each and every one of us, because in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said something that we've probably all heard from the time we were young. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets. It's Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, otherwise known as the golden rule. And so understand in this situation how the green light that Athaliah put out on the heirs to the throne of Israel ended up being the green light that was eventually put on her, and it marked the way that she was going to exit the throne. A green light being that term that you will see sometimes if you ever, like me, click on some of the channels that have ex-convicts explaining what it's like to be in prison. A green light is a term that they use for permission that's given to take the life of another person by someone they would call a shot caller or an authority figure in the penitentiary. And in this circumstance, Athaliah was the shot caller who put a green light on everybody who could be a rival to her position in Israel. And so the green light that she ended up putting on the other heirs to the throne of Israel ended up being the green light that God allowed to be put on her. Thus, as we've seen before, God allowed her to pick the standard by which she was not only going to exit Israel, but life. And so understand, we have seen this by the way in which Ahab and Jezebel wrote life off as cheap. That ended up being the way in which Jehu basically treated their lives when it was their time to go. Likewise with Hazael, king of Syria, the way that he got rid of Ben-Hadad, the previous king of Syria, wasn't all that different from the way that Ben-Hadad had treated those in Israel who had been kind to him. And so now we're seeing the same thing with Athaliah. And as we move forward to the next 2 generations of kings in Judah, we're going to see how even the next 2 generations of Judah's kings, even though they're proper heirs, they're still not going to have learned the lesson that the green lights they put out on others are going to likewise set the standard for the way that they fall from the throne of Judah.